right, guys. So this is going into the Jeffrey Epstein files again, but this time it's the newest document dump with the 3.5 million, I think is what they said, pages that have been dropped. And obviously, Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein. No secret. It's no secret whatsoever. We know he knew him. This photo, I think, has been debunked. Those were actually models from the Hawaiian Tropic or something like that. No, I'm not excusing Trump at all, but there are just different documents that have been released. This is an email to somebody, and pretty much it's just a link to a Guardian article. And then once you go to the Guardian article, let me get over here. So hold on, let me get back to the screen I was at. So here's this is an article. It's more than 9 years old. It was done Thursday, July 7th, 2016, and it says rape lawsuits against Donald Trump linked to a former TV producer. And if you know anything about Jerry Springer, you know that show was just completely nuts and probably just about as choreographed as WWE wrestling. So it's kind of one of those deals, just take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, it says Norm Lubo, something like that, formerly a producer on the Jerry Springer show, apparently coordinated lawsuits accusing Donald Trump of raping a child in the 1990s. And if you've heard about a girl named Katie Johnson, she was the one that was supposed to be the alleged victim, but then they said that there was somebody else the same time frame back in 2016 when he was trying to get elected. Obviously, people were coming out of the woodworks trying to get him, but it is what it is. Anyway, it says court filings in California and New York purportedly on behalf of a woman using the name Katie Johnson, have accused Trump of rape. The Republican vehemently denies the allegations, and then the photograph is Rick Wilking from Reuters. Says lawsuits accusing Donald Trump of sexually assaulting a child in the 1990s appears to have been orchestrated by an eccentric anti-Trump campaigner with the record of making outlandish claims about celebrities. Norm Lubow, I don't know how you say it, a former producer on the Jerry Springer TV show, has previously been involved with disputed allegations that O.J. Simpson bought illegal drugs on the day Simpson's wife was murdered, and that Kurt Cobain's widow had the Nirvana frontman killed. Court filings in California and New York against Trump, reportedly on behalf of a woman using the name Katie Johnson, have in recent weeks alleged that the presumptive Republican presidential nominee raped Johnson when she was 13. I've heard this story before, but one thing about it is that it was like withdrawn and basically kicked out of the court system. I don't know why. There was like 3 different things that happened to it, and I did make a video on it. But anyway, I can't remember. There was 3 different things that happened. I think it was withdrawn, refused to be taken in by the court, or maybe somebody else, I think, made a video of some lawsuit that was brought. Oh, I think it was Michael Cohen. He was given like a lawsuit that came across his desk. And anyway, pretty much he contacted the attorney's office that filed the lawsuit, and they hadn't even vetted the person. So, that's like, you can make all these allegations, but you have to prove it in court, and I don't know how you would prove something like that from that many years ago. But anyway, whatever. Anyway, it says a publicist using the pseudonym Al Taylor is acting as representative for Johnson and has been shopping around to media outlets a video of a woman who wears a disguise while recounting the allegations against Trump. Taylor said in the telephone calls last month that he was seeking $1 million for the tape. Well, obviously, he should have gone to the court system and not tried to sell a tape, but for money, people do anything. Jezebel has published a segment of the video along with a detailed account of how the allegations against Trump being pushed to reporters. And then over here, Jezebel with Splinter. I don't even know what Jezebel is. Jezebel in the Bible is not a good woman, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Now, here's how that wild lawsuit accusing Trump of raping a 13-year-old girl hit the headlines. In recent weeks, several national press outlets have retailed, have retailed? I don't know what that is. A set, a set of very unflattering allegations about Donald Trump, namely that he raped a 13-year-old at a 1994 orgy hosted by notorious celebrity sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. What no one's reported on yet is the fact that the recent round of coverage is the culmination of an almost year-long campaign to quietly push these allegations into the public discussion and maybe make some money in the process. Back over here to the $1 million that the guy was seeking for the video, supposed video. I don't know how you would have a video of that, but okay, maybe they used a camcorder, if you know what a camcorder is. But anyway, it says the stories are based on lawsuits filed by Trump's accuser against him and Epstein. News organizations on the right and left have started poking at those claims gingerly and skeptically. The allegations are beyond the pale even for Trump, and there's little sourcing for them beyond the lawsuit itself. On August 5th of last year, a Gawker Media employee received an unsolicited voicemail tip from someone identifying themselves as Al Taylor, which is this dude, this Norm LeBeau dude. Anyway, let's see. The PR person for the Erotic Heritage Museum in Las Vegas. Ew. Taylor requested that someone from Gawker return his call because he said, I've got some good info on Donald Trump for you. It might be very interesting for your site. In addition to managing public relations for a museum designed to preserve wonders of the erotic imagination, Taylor said he was a former producer for the syndicated tabloid news show Inside Edition. A Gawker.com reporter returned the call, and the info that Taylor claimed to have was explosive. Over the next few months, the Gawker reporter and Taylor, along with another tabloid producer named Mike Smith and videographer Jonathan Lahner, I guess, engaged in a series of telephone and email conversations with Trump on March 30th of this year in order to continue reporting out Taylor's claims. Gawker Media entered into a non-disclosure agreement barring the company or the reporter who was working on the story from publicly discussing a particular item without the consent of that item's owner. It is typical for media companies to sign such agreements when deliberating whether to purchase material for publication. Gawker never purchased anything or published any stories related to the info that it received from Taylor. In April, not long after Gawker entered into the NDA, a woman named Katie Johnson sued Trump in federal court in California, claiming that Trump and Epstein solicited sex acts from Johnson and another underage victim named only as Maria Doe, while the women were involuntarily at sex parties at the Manhattan homes of Epstein and Trump. Johnson, who represented herself in the complaint, alleged that she was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career. In an unrelated case in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to one count of soliciting prostitution and another of procuring a person under 18 for prostitution. And I was watching Virginia Giuffre on a 60 Minutes interview earlier from Australia. Anyway, she was saying, think of that again. Epstein was soliciting a minor for prostitution. A minor for prostitution. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I don't see how he can not be held accountable for that, but he only got 2 charges for that. Nothing else happened to him. Anyway, he served 13 months in jail and has settled numerous other civil lawsuits out of court. He's registered as a sex offender for life. Johnson's lawsuit, described a litany of sex acts, including allegations that she was forced to manually stimulate defendant Trump with the use of her hand upon defendant Trump's erect penis until he reached sexual orgasm and that she was later forced to engage in an unnatural lesbian sex act with their fellow minor and sex slave Maria Doe, age 12, for the sexual enjoyment of defendant Trump. The suit also claimed that Trump completed the encounter by zipping up his pants, pushing both girls away, and angrily berating them for the poor quality of their sexual performance. Oh my gosh. Okay, anyway, yeah, this is gross. It says the complaint received minimal press attention at the time. An uncharacteristically skeptical Radar Online pointed out that the address listed on the court documents is a home that is foreclosed in 29 Palms, California, and that no one has lived at the house since its owner, David Stacy, died in October of last year. Radar quoted Trump saying that the allegations were not only categorically false, but disgusting at the highest level and clearly framed to solicit media attention or perhaps are simply politically motivated, which I believe that's really what it was. And I'm not defending him, but I mean, it sure is funny that the thing was withdrawn or kicked out of the court. You know, obviously there was no merit there for them to take it on. Anyway, that's just my opinion of the whole thing. I'm not saying Trump's innocent of anything, but I'm also not saying that he's guilty. I don't know until we get some people in handcuffs. Who knows? And like I was watching Sean Ryan earlier, and it's no longer about Republican or Democrat. It's good versus evil. I mean, that's really where we're at. These people have gotten away with so much, and we don't know who to believe anymore. I certainly don't. I don't sit there and hang on every single word that Trump says. I don't hang on every single word that other people say. I just listen when I feel like it. So anyway, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying I don't know who's guilty, who's innocent. I don't know anything at this point until, like I said, we get people in handcuffs. So anyway, um, so right here it's politically motivated. Since he added, there is absolutely no merit to these allegations. Period. Indeed, a federal judge denied Johnson's request to proceed as an indigent plaintiff, I guess meaning homeless or something like that, and noted that while the lawsuit had been filed as a civil rights suit, it failed to state any claim under federal civil rights statutes. The suit was dismissed. Okay, so it was withdrawn and dismissed. There was several times I think this came up. When the court tried to send a notice to Johnson at her listed address, it was returned with the note, no new address found. Gawker's contacts with Taylor and his colleagues ended after Johnson filed her complaint in California. But in early June, Jezebel was separately sent an unsolicited tip from an organization calling itself Vote Trump, Get Dumped. The organization urges women to launch a what? What the hell does that mean? Lysistrata-esque? What does that mean? Sex strike. Abstaining from boning any Trump supporting men. What? What the heck? What is this Lysistrata-esque? What does that mean? What does that mean? Alyssa, hold on. Lysistrata. What does that mean? Lysistrata is an ancient Greek comedy by Aristophanes about a woman who leads a female sex strike to end the Peloponnesian War. What? Okay. So, literally translating to army disbander, or dissolver of armies. Her name reflects her role in stopping the fighting by demanding peace. The play highlights themes of power, gender, and sexual politics. Okay. So a disbander of armies. Okay. Anyway, I didn't know what that meant. Never heard the word. So, okay. So here's a story lead for you. The tipster from BTGD wrote. Last week, a 35-year-old woman named Katie Johnson filed criminal charges against Trump with the NYPDANY, accusing him of raping her 22 years ago when she was a 13-year-old girl. I've talked to someone who has talked to her, and they're pretty convinced she's legit. This could be some crazy shit. It says vote Trump, get dumped. Also included a link, but it wasn't actually to an active court case or criminal complaint. Instead, it sent us to a letter purportedly written by Johnson to NYPD Commissioner William Bratton. The letter began with a jaw-dropping, very blunt allegation. I was violently raped by Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey E. Epstein in New York City in separate yet related incidents at age 13. Their sexual assaults against me and other minors, more than rapes alone, occurred on multiple occasions at the residence of Mr. Epstein during June to September 1994. The email from Vote Trump, Get Dumped appeared to be trying to revive the allegations in Johnson's dismissed lawsuit. But their suggestion that Johnson had filed criminal charges in New York was incorrect. I responded to the email asking how to get in touch with Katie Johnson. I was never put in touch with Katie Johnson. Instead, Vote Trump, Get Dumb directed me to call a passionate, politically involved conservative named Steve Bayer. I guess that's how you say it, Bayer, because he can probably get you a call with her. Vote Trump, Get Dumb was founded by an Ohio woman named Chandler Smith and her husband Blake. Bayer is Chandler Smith's father. He was once described by the National Review as a conservative maggot donor, not a maggot donor, and the world's most successful email harasser, known for sending combative and colorful email missives to a who's who list of power brokers in the conservative world. I called Bayer. In an hour-long phone call, he told me that he was not in direct contact with Katie Johnson. That said, he added, I've seen her on video and spoken to her on the phone, although, of course, we can always be fooled. Bayer then launched into a passionate diatribe against Donald Trump, whom he saw as the destruction of everything the party of Lincoln holds dear. He said he and his wife became never Trumpers after the South Carolina primaries. The way it happened for us is we decided we were opposed to Trump. He said, excuse me, we see him as a very dangerous person for the Republic. We see him as a Mussolini or Hitler type. And we discovered in South Carolina that he's also a terrible misogynist. Barrett told me he learned of the rape allegations from none other than Al Taylor, who he said showed him an explosive video of Johnson outlining her claims. In the video, he said Katie Johnson was pretty obviously wearing a wig. It looked kind of cheap, kind of floozy-ish, according to Bayer. Taylor explained the wig by saying that Johnson didn't want to be recognized and killed by Donald Trump or Jeffrey Epstein. At that point in the conversation, and several times after, I expressed strong reservations about Johnson's story, even wondering whether a woman by that name existed. Bayer wasn't offended. Even if it's an elaborate hoax, it's kind of interesting, right? He said amiably. But I don't think it is. In a follow-up email, he was more unequivocal. My bride and I believe Katie. If I had to bet my house on her claims being true or false, I'd bet true, he wrote. But even were it to turn out that we've been hoaxed, I don't think so. It's still an incredibly elaborate hoax and a story unto itself. On June 14th, a male tipster asking to remain anonymous sent me a link to a video call or titled Katie Johnson Testimony R.E. Trump, pixelated and voice altered. It shows a woman wearing what's definitely a long blonde wig, sitting in a chair in what might be a hotel room next to a wooden table that's empty save for a lamp. It does not appear to be testimony in any formal or legal sense. The woman is wearing a white blazer, a pink blouse, and a big amber color statement necklace, whatever. Her face is pixelated and her voice is disguised. It makes for a fairly creepy overall vibe. as she graphically describes giving Donald Trump a hand job and being raped by him as an underage girl. Okay, so I guess this would have been the video. Let's see if anything's here. They probably took it down. Oh, yeah, no video was supported. Format and MIME type found. Okay. The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. I was 13, she says. He basically asked if I could come over and give him a handy. Anyway, she pauses for several long minutes. Sorry, this is a little difficult, but before I gave him the job, he kind of slapped my hand away and said, "You need to use a glove." Tiffany ran over and said, "No one touches Mr. Trump's without a glove." And Tiffany, his daughter? What the hell? Okay. Anyway, the second time Johnson met Trump, she says he was on looking at an orgy at Epstein's house. She was approached by Tiffany again and told that Trump wanted her to perform oral. Anyway, from there, Johnson continued. She was taken to another room and tied to a bed with pantyhose, bound so tight she could move. Okay, she graphically describes being brutally, whatever, by Trump. Okay, anyway, I tried to say something. It was just, shut up, B. It was basically like he was being really, really rough. I started to get scared. And he was, basically like ripping my clothes off. I got freaked out. He just turned into this animal, like a completely different person. I couldn't do anything about it. He ripped off my clothes. He started to basically have with me, and I was screaming. I never had that before. It was my first time. He told me shut the F up and basically took virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. Basically begging for him to just stop. Okay. This is pretty gross. I need to find that video. Anyway, I don't want to keep reading because I'll probably get banned from freaking YouTube. But yeah, that's pretty nasty. I think I've talked about this before on one of the videos I've done. But anyway, yeah, it's basically where he was being super rough with her. I'll put the link in the video description because yuck. I mean, seriously. Let's see. Sure enough, on June 20th, a woman going by the name Jane Doe filed a lawsuit in Manhattan federal court that is identical in many ways to Johnson's earlier dismissed claim. An attorney for Johnson confirmed to us that that's my client. They're the same people. What? It didn't break on network news, but Real Deal and the New York Daily News picked it up, along with numerous other outlets. Over the next few days, the Daily News described it as a repeat of the California filing, with some of the more salacious and inflammatory charges omitted. It says, gone from the new lawsuit is an allegation that Trump threw money at the plaintiff for an abortion when she expressed fear about getting pregnant after being raped. Gone to is allegation that Trump called co-defendant and accused pedophile and sex party host Jeffrey Epstein. This kind of stirred her request for $100 million in damages. Anyway, y'all, I'll just put this in there, and y'all can read through this. It is pretty gross. Trump accused of federal lawsuit. Okay, I'll see if I can find that video. A phony NY rape lawsuit against real Donald Trump, a hoax addressed in Clinton Wars. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, that's very gross. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here because this is gross. But anyway, if it's true, everybody needs to be held accountable for it. That can be. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.